This is Johnny Blue Star. Welcome to Threshold, a global media event. Is the universe just a random dance of atoms, or is it a manifestation of a supremely intelligent architect? Can its purpose, or our purpose here on Earth, be adequately assessed? Can we commune with it, know its intentions, cooperate with its direction? Here, we define threshold as a gateway state of awareness, allowing mankind to cross into a place of real cognition. Threshold allows us to approach questions of higher reality through the door of experience, rather than mere belief. Welcome to Threshold, where we tear away the veil from commercial media, bringing our audience and participants into another realm of reality and enhanced communication. This is Johnny Blue Star, and this is show number 2 of a series of shows called Who's Minding the Planet, featuring a continuing interview with musician, composer, songwriter Zave Nathan and his wife and songwriting partner, Bonnie Blazak, whose professional name is Blaze. I just want to point out that Zave sings many of the songs he has written and we have performed here, so he's actually part of that American tradition of singer-songwriters. And since lyrics are a key component of songs, I think we should give extraordinary thanks to the incisive, clever, and often hopeful lyrics of Blaze, Bonnie's, as I said, Bonnie's professional name, who uses the fibers of her poetic paintbrush to integrate a gritty realism about the world with the sometimes challenging task of waking up to its reality and actually doing something. Usually when I have guests related to writing, film, or music, I'm interested in their creative processes. How do each of you come up with your ideas, and how do you manage to collaborate so effectively with each other?
Wow.
Well, I guess I'm sort of his muse, you know.
It's true.
Sometimes I'll say something, a phrase, a sentence, and he hears something melodic in it, plus it's a hook, plus it's clever wording, and it starts to spin into something bigger and becomes a song. Sometimes it's that he picks up the guitar and he is just fooling around and he finds a lick and a hook that he really likes and he starts playing it and we just sort of feel the emotion that brings out, and I start saying something about that emotion. So we collaborate very well, but you know, it's also because we're in love and we finish each other's sentences, and that, you know, that interaction flows into our creative realm as well.
Yeah.
So I take it that this thing is not like you come up with the lyrics and he does the music. It's just like an evolution of you both together. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we can start with a song, or like she said, a hook. For instance, she's going to say something that sounds like this. So the words are not real, but not really relevant to my ear because I hear da 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 da, right?
Right.
Rhythm to what she said. So from that I go da 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 da, and it starts rhythmically. My brain is a computer, so I can add or subtract or move or speed up. Or so her being my muse, I capture the energy of what she says or her ideas. And because she was born here and she's a good writer, she's a better English speaker and writer than I am. So she's better. So she does it.
Blaze, you started writing poetry, didn't you?
I started writing poetry when I was a child, actually, when I was 7 years old. And I used to read poetry books and I just loved them. And then I started writing my own short stories and poems. So, and even to this day, you know, with our unfortunate digital age that has brought wonderful things and terrible things, it's reduced our language to just tiny words. And here, I grew up in an era where writing with flourish and description and, you know, making it, a fun read. Uh-huh. Remember when people used to enjoy reading a sentence that was just clever and just gave you this image, you know,
like the Beatles.
And now it's like, please don't send such long emails. I don't have time to read more than a few lines.
Zave, I know that you grew up with music from the very start, but when did you start to actually work on writing songs?
18.
And what inspired you?
I was fooling around. I was a professional dancer at 18. So I was surrounded with, you know, music, orchestras, dancers, makeup, feathers, costume, you know, all this stuff. And And I was on my way out of my parents' house. And I remember I grew a beard. Yeah, I was on vacation. I didn't want to shave. And I had my acoustic guitar and already had a multi-track recording system. The house, it was just a 2-track, multi-track.
Right.
And I started recording as an experiment. On one track, you record the guitar, and then on the other track, you record the voice, and then you mix them down and submix, and then add another track. This is what we used to call ping pong, ping ponging. And so I started like I do now. It was always the same process. Put down a rhythm track, 3 minutes, and start humming melodies until I came up with a hooky one, and then put words to them and build a song this way. This is how I started. And I was guided and very, very impressed by Elton John.
Oh, okay.
And,
great songwriter.
Yeah. And so one album that really started light a fire under my awareness and creativity was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, 1976.
Right. Great. Another great piece of music.
It's double album, and I don't know, 11 hits, I think, on this album, 10 or 11 hits. And it was produced by Gus Dudgeon. The lyrics were by Bernie Taupin. And that was the first time that I really, really, really listened to every note with headphones on this album for months. And that's one of my schools. This album is definitely, this is when I started to feel and understand as far as pop music is concerned.
What was your first song about?
That was about talking to French young children. Oh my God, you put me on the spot.
Sorry about that.
But it was a little little boy, little girl with your blonde eyes, look in the sky, with your blue eyes, look in the sky, and turn your heads, whatever. It's irrelevant, really. But that's how it started. That was my first attempt to songwriting.
Well, I want to ask you a question. We promoted this program to some people anyway with a song that we're going to play now called Living in the Closet. And I'm interested in knowing some of the details, how this came together. Not just the sort of ideological reason that you did it, but also the collaborative aspect of it. How did that creatively emerge?
Well, do you want to take it on?
Yeah, we wrote this when our 2 children were still living at home before they grew up and went away, which happened recently. And they were driving us a little crazy to the point that, we would not only retreat to our bedroom for some peace and quiet at the end of the night so we could, he could play his guitar and we could see what flowed.
I mean, you have to imagine we had a home in Santa Monica, and both of the kids were going to school. So they were like 10 and 14. And so imagine getting ready for school. Did you do your homework? Did you broke this? Why did you break this? I mean, all this, right? And okay, guys, it's 9 o'clock. Let's go to bed. We have to wake up tomorrow morning, go to school. So you always have I'm tired. I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch TV.
Well, my kids are about the same distance in age, so I had something very close to that too.
So what our routine was 9:30. We are closed door, the guitar's on the bed, and my muse is we're having a creative, fun couple hours before we go to bed. And so this is go ahead, sweetie.
So this one particular night, the kids had just pulled every trick in the books. So frustrated that not only did we close our bedroom door and go into our room, but we went into our walk-in closet.
Oh
no!
So this is literally true, huh?
Really true. And we sat on the floor and we were laughing. God, we're living in the closet. And he picked up the guitar and he started doing a reggae beat, and started singing "Living in the Closet." And then it evolved from there. We started thinking about, so why would someone choose to live in a closet? What are you hiding from? And it became about the population of our world living in the closet as if they don't want to know what's really going on out there. They're either hiding something from themselves because it's too much to bear, or they're hiding themselves from the world.
And it's not a song about homosexuality at all.
Yeah.
In my case, I was always politically aware, but I was politically wrong at a certain point after 9/11. And I'll maybe go into that later because it's part of what we're going to discuss. But right now, let's play it. Let's play Living in the Closet.
From the dust, we need a world that we can trust. Start together hand in hand, rebuild from now until the end. Promise us gain, but a giving us pain. This little world has gone insane. Stop living in the closet. Living in the closet. Living in the closet. Yeah, living in the closet. Up high, brotherhood of man, only love, no more life. Put your hand in my hand and raise it up high. Brotherhood of man, only love, no more life. Hand in hand until the end. Hand in hand until the end. Hand in hand until
In our last program, we discussed the harsh awakening both Zave and Blaze felt during a time when they were both involved in real estate and thinking of running their own real estate business. Then came the early signals of the 2008 financial collapse, which created confusion for them and so many others in the day-to-day conduct of their business. They were confused because a collapse was coming that was related to the fraudulent securitized mortgages that were created by bundling dicey, poorly financed individual mortgages which were acquired without any kind of real due diligence. In other words, the people didn't really have the money to do a mortgage, and sometimes there was absolutely no oversight from the banks or the lending institutions when they got it. And then these things were rated highly by the rating companies. At any rate, at one point, both of them saw the film Zeitgeist, which opened their eyes to an entirely new dimension of business and social political reality. My own awakening began later. I believe with Abu Ghraib in the realization that this was not an isolated incident, but a result of the policies of the United States that I found illegal, dangerous, and contemptible. This was the fault of my father, who was an attorney whose career, which was quite a bit oriented to protecting his clients from the self-serving interests of insurance companies, but was also punctuated by his efforts to combat segregation in the Deep South and police brutality. After that pattern of attempt to separate alleged terrorists from the principles that govern American justice by denying them rights to habeas corpus, rights to an attorney, the right to a speedy and just trial, and other rights granted to them by the Geneva Convention, I became extremely alarmed. Then I went over the events of 9/11 and various wars that followed and began to formulate an entirely different picture of political reality, one that contradicted all that I believed in and hoped for from our country. As I did this, the revelations about surveillance drove me to the conclusion that our citizenry had lost its control over the country and was too asleep to do something. In our last Who's Minding the Planet, we questioned to some degree the source of the economic downturn of our country, the loss of our constitutional rights, the internal dangers facing the United States, which have been enormously increased by our porous borders and our lax immigration policies and many other tactics. We must simply face up for that. Whatever reason, the tactics that are being deployed by a combination of central banking policies, the imperialistic military excursions overseas, the defunct trade policies, the lack of environmental safety governing our protection of food, water, and air resources, and the possible danger of hidden terrorist threats inside our own country is there. And since you take all these problems and see them in dozens of countries on this planet, my answer to the questions of who's minding the planet is probably the wrong people. One friend of mine addressed this question: is there a great conspiracy? I'm not sure, he said, but at least a very large number of smaller conspiracies. But that was one person's approach. Mine is still ambivalent about who's behind it. But how would you guys answer this question?
Who's behind it? The occult, the ones you don't see, the ones who operate in the shadow. Now, I will be blunt. What animal, what creature operates in the dark?
I'm not sure. Bats?
Yeah, cockroaches, vampires.
I have to say something about that word occult before we go on. You know, occult means hidden. And I do believe that there are secrets about the universe and about spiritual evolution that are necessarily hidden, just because people cannot, even though it's what Goethe called the open secret, they can't necessarily access this positive direction of spirituality. So I have a feeling that you're really talking about a negative occult.
Yes, a very dark occult. It's the Illuminati bloodlines that have all of power, the monarchies, all of the European royal families are all within this bloodline, which they very, very carefully preserve from generation to generation. And for eons, they have ruled our planet, and they're still ruling it today. And we had no idea. This is part of the spiritual awakening, is awakening to your 3D reality that you live in. A spiritual enlightenment isn't just you close your eyes and go within and meditate and feel your connection to source, and that's all very good. But if you don't understand the physical world you live in, how are you enlightened? I remember Jacques Fresco, who is a 100-year-old inventor extraordinaire who's way ahead of his time, and who has put together a project in Florida called the Venus Project that shows how we can live without a money system, where the inhabitants can all give 4 hours a day work to the community in whatever area of their expertise or passion. Nobody gets paid, but everyone has everything they need. You have a roof over your head. You live in a beautiful community. You've got your food. Everything is provided for everyone. But you still have all this time to be with your family and teach your children and, paint your paintings and, all those things. And someone had said to him once, well, I'm enlightened, and he said, oh, you are really? Well, do you know where your kidneys are? And the guy said, well, I don't know. They're somewhere like here in my back, right? And he said, he showed him where his kidneys were. And he said, do you know the direction in which your heart pumps the blood throughout your veins and arteries in your body? And then he said, no, not really. He said, well, then how can you tell me you're enlightened? So I think it's a combination of really seeing the world and understanding the world for what it is in balance with that finding and keeping that connection with source and knowing that, we are probably multidimensional beings. We are more than we know. And, but we've been kept down by this group of controllers. They don't want us to wake up. And that's what's happening now. We are waking up. Mm-hmm. And the proof of it is that people are starting to understand and see all of this corruption and craziness and are resisting it and want it to go away. That's what I see going on right now. It's like two birds that might be fighting in the sky. They're both leaping up in the air to meet in the middle to attack each other. And that's the beautiful love energy and the ugly dark energy are facing off now.
Well, I will have to say that I don't necessarily agree with you about this. I don't necessarily disagree either because I'm not sure. But I will say this. I do definitely see the evidence of negative occultism in a lot of the things that are being done, like in the Bohemian Forest, as an example. Bohemian Grove, some of the ceremonies, certainly some of the things that I've heard about in terms of the ceremonies of some of these higher echelon people who are controlling the country are very disturbing and do seem to fit into that framework. I'm just not convinced that it's the bloodlines of royalty or that's really behind it. I do think that there is a central group here that are very influenced by not only negative occultism, but also by Nazi ideology and actual practice of the continuation of certain Nazi-like practices that are actually historically based. So I think there's something going on here, but I'm not about to give it over to bloodlines.
Well, you might want to read a book by Fritz Springmeier, The Illuminati Bloodlines, and he explains the whole thing. He researched it He
was in prison for 7 years for publishing the book.
Okay, where was he in prison?
In America. I don't remember exactly where.
So you're saying that they probably falsified some charge against them since it's not illegal to write a book, right?
Certainly, yeah.
And you might want to take a look at Jordan Maxwell.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in prison for the same reasons that Solzhenitsyn was imprisoned in Russia. You dare not speak the truth. Don't you get the people woken up and riled up over the truth? So
that's generally how it works, isn't it? I mean, you find something to persecute somebody for that's not exactly the same as what you are really persecuting them for.
It's happening here now all the time. The journalists are being imprisoned and killed. Yeah.
Yeah, and the use of the Espionage Act to curtail whistleblowers.
Yeah, totally illegal.
So I'm going to grant you your hypothesis for a moment because that's what you believe in. And so I would like to ask you, what if that is true, what can we actually do about it?
Well, what my mission is to write about this in songs and to use the music to penetrate the soul. And we are witnessing every day, we are collecting, and Blaze is funneling the ideas, and we develop songs from this observation and this awareness. I cannot anymore.
We've lost so many friends and so many connections in our social circle by even discussing any of this, because people cannot believe that everything they've always believed in is false, and they don't even want to look at one aspect of it being something else other than what they've always believed. But we went through this ourselves. I mean, believe me, as you and I, Johnny, discussed in our last talk, that I had religious beliefs that I had to let go of too when I realized they were unfounded, and it's painful. It's hard to let go of what you believe in. And then for us, the more we dug and looked into this whole situation, everything we were ever told was a lie. Wow. So we live in a world that is, it is the Matrix. It's a totally false reality. Yes. And when you wake up and unplug from the Matrix and you see what it really is, and then you want to go try to wake up the other people and say, hey, you want to take this thing out from the back of your neck and unplug and look at what the world really is. And they're like, get the fuck away from me.
Oh, FCC, oh.
Well, for myself, one of the things that happened to me, as I mentioned, is that I started to relook at 9/11, and I don't want to go into the details of that, but the point is I decided to talk to some people about it. I wound up with a lot of people from my family, and I started to bring it up to them as individuals. And some of them said, well, yeah, that could be, but but none of them really wanted to pursue the conversation at all. And this was just on a very narrow political framework.
Yeah, it's so hard that people just don't want to talk about it because it's the number one, as a foreigner, becoming an American because I had a purpose and witnessing this. And it was, to me, the biggest reason that a government can do on its citizens. It's just appalling.
9/11, yeah.
And the truth is coming out. The truth will come out completely. The 28 pages will come out. It's going to come out. And we'll figure out what it is. We know what it is. When the American people will go, really? No way. Really? No. Yes. Oh my God. It's going to be a change of awareness, and America will change its political direction.
But as far as stopping this evil power that, has taken over everything for thousands and thousands of years, what can people like you and I do?
I think we can do a lot. And later on in our discussion, I'd like to sort of propose certain things that we can do. But I do think that part of it, honestly, in my mind, as you know, because you know what I do, is music. Part of it is because music has been a very deleterious effect in our country now. It's like we discussed in our last program. It's dumbed down things, and it's injected a certain type of violence and unlawfulness into the whole atmosphere in between the bubblegum non-reality, just chewing on it and listening like a cow chews on its cud, and not really moving people to do or think about anything.
No, it glorifies thuggery, and what good does that do us?
Well, we're going to ask you, Zave, a little bit about your instrumental global musical project. Tell us a little bit more about it. I know you described a little bit in the last show. I
started with one track that had an Irish vibe to it. And actually, our son was still here when I did it, right? It was last year, yeah. And I am a blues guitarist. I'm a blues rock country guitarist.
Right.
So okay, and I had the acoustic going on, and I wanted to to stretch a little bit and to do something different. So I randomly, with my drum program, randomly created rhythms to jam, and something came up that sounded Irish. I felt like, well, man, let's develop this. And the instrumentation that I had at the time, and I wanted to keep it this way purposefully, was one acoustic guitar, one microphone, one tambourine, one harmonica, one bass, and that's it.
Really cool, because some of these different forms of music that you're playing are using radically different instruments, right?
Well, I'm using only...
No, not you. I mean, in the indigenous places that you're like Greece, say, they use certain instruments that you weren't using at all, but it sounds like...
It sounds like a bouzouki.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. If you take a guitar and you tune it a certain way, and you learn the phrasing of what a bouzouki player, you can do this with an acoustic guitar, obviously.
That's what I thought was really cool, is that you're taking the simplest, just ordinary instruments, and you're creating all these unique sounds that usually you get from other instruments.
That's the idea. You see, I'm a painter. I'm a musical painter, and I use a term that is very dear to me. It's psychoacoustic.
Aha.
So being a painter, I have a brush, and I can use my brush to paint green, blue, yellow. I can have a fat brush, I can have a small brush. So I can have a guitar, an electric guitar, a 5-string guitar, a bouzouki, or a banjo, or a mandolin. Or it does not matter, because notes are notes. Now, depending on how you play the notes, how you phrase the notes, and how the frequency and the tone of the notes are merged together to create a canvas of musical structure. That's, I swim in that. This is very easy for me to do. So taking this, and for other purposes, is I don't have a collection of instruments of typical classical. I don't. I just have 7 guitars and a bass. That's all I have. And they're acoustic and electric guitars. So I had to be creative and use them in a slightly different way. So I started with one track, and it sounded, it was fun. It was, oh my God, this is Ireland, done in my studio here in the mountains. So I took that track and I sent it to my publisher. And he said, wow, that's interesting. Just exactly the way you feel. He said, well, that's interesting. Can you make more? And I go, sure. How many do you need? So I told him about the idea to do an around the world because it's world music. That's the concept that I had. And he said, oh, that sounds great. How many can you make? So I thought, well, I'm going to make 8. Like Jules Verne said, around the world in 80 days, I'm going to do around the world in 8 tracks. So I started developing. You go around the world, you got Arabic, you got Chinese, you got Russian, you got Italian, you got Spanish, you got some French, and it's so fun to do. And I went to 8 and I couldn't stop because at that point I had so many ideas. So I went up to 12 and I delivered an album of 12 world track to BMG, and they are marketing it hard. And I got breakdown. The album has been licensed already in different territories.
Terrific.
All the tracks done. They already. I don't necessarily agree with the amount of licensing, but the machine is on and it's being distributed. It's happening.
Well, with all these tracks, how did you come up with the piece? I believe it's part of this called Alligator Track.
So after this album of world music was done, my publisher, again BMG, said, well, do you do slide? I go, well, kind of. I never have really looked into slide guitar that much, but, let me look into it. What do you need? And he said, well, I have a request for something that sounds like Justified or Breaking Bad, which are 2 television shows. The music behind it it's swampy. It's kind of slide guitar with a dobro and something really Alabama-ish kind of, And I thought, well, let me take a look at this. So I went on YouTube. I looked at Derek Trucks. I looked at Joe Norman and the slide players. And I felt like, well, I can do that. This is fun. So I hooked up my bottleneck, which is a part of a cutoff from a beer bottle. And I started experimenting and changing the tuning on the guitar. And I went, wow. That opened a whole palette of sounds that I never used before. And so I put myself in the Ozarks and I started looking at videos of what's happening in these regions and kind of the heavy, humid. It has a special color. And because I'm a musical painter, I looked at the color of this type of music and I offered my version. And he said, okay, how many can you make? So how many do you need? So right now I developed 3 tracks and I have another 5 to do and using the same kind of colors. And because it needed image support, I made my own little video to support the music and I called it Alligator Swamp.
Oh, Alligator Swamp, yes. Well, let's play it. Alligator Swamp. Well, let's get on to another subject. A lot of the problems that we face are the response of various countries to American participation in efforts that directly reward the defense and energy industry with great financial benefits, as well as many diverse American corporations and multinationals with all kinds of corporate, involvement in these countries that we have involved ourselves with. So my answer to this question, as a matter of fact, every single in terms of what we've been discussing, in regards to every single problem facing this planet, is that we must find a new comprehensive paradigm, a new conception of planetary governance, quite the opposite of the so-called ideology of those who promoted the idea of a new world order. So let's just go very specifically into some of these areas. Given the huge economic influences of oil in our economy, should the United States back away from oil as a main driver of our energy and pursue vigorously a path of alternative energy? What do you think?
I will attempt to answer by asking questions so your listeners can think about the statement you just made. First is, what is energy? So people out there, think about this question. What is energy? Energy is life. If you control the energy, you control the life. So energy is electricity. Electricity is heat, hospitals, communication, computers. Electricity is life. You cannot conceive and sustain life on this planet the way we do without electricity. If you remove electricity from our life, imagine the amount of deaths there's going to be in the world. So the entities that control energy control everything, the planet, society, and life at large. Right now, the energy that they control is oil-based. So the most important source of control on the planet is oil. Oil is Middle East, number one, Saudi Arabia, controlled by Saudi Arabia and the US. And the US is an oil-driven entity. The Bush family is an oil family. The Nazi Party was financed by Rockefeller and Bush. Bush is Texas. Rockefeller was Texas. Rockefeller was Esso, Standard Oil. It's about the war in Iraq, the war in the Middle East. It's always oil-driven. So to answer your question, who controls the energy controls the world. The day Saudi Arabia and the Middle East are losing the grasp on the control of life on the planet, it will go very fast and they will lose their power and their control, because outside of oil, these countries bring absolutely nothing to society and civilization. Absolutely nothing.
I want to bring in a much larger component to this. You do believe that there are alternative energies that could replace oil, not just solar and wind, but other alternative energies, do you not, or not?
Yes, absolutely. I recently read last year, two different men had invented a source of energy that could power a whole house. It was the size of like a little cat's sleeping bed in a circular device that based on Tesla information. And apparently it's, you activate it, and once it's been activated, I guess you have to plug it into your wall and bring it up to speed. And from that moment on, it will self-renew and power your home and everything in it indefinitely. And this man in India who invented it said he wants to make it available to everyone in the world, but he will only charge $200 for each of these devices. And for people who are very poor and cannot afford the $200, he has investors who are willing to create a fund for the needy so that everyone can get one, whether they can come up with that money or not. Now, I haven't heard another peep about it.
If you can find the guy, you let me know.
So there's definitely technology that exists that can keep us self-renewing indefinitely in perpetuity.
For free. Yeah.
For free. Free energy. Well, the powers that shouldn't be do not want this to ever get into our hands. So,
but you would say that they already have it, right? They already know about it. That's how come they can do things like have a private space program. Well, I have a question about this. This is like where I'm going with this. It's a little bit off track. So you hear about the private space program and UFOs and this tremendous power, I guess you call it net zero energy development. What would be the word for that?
0 point energy.
0 point energy. So you hear of all these things, and I have to ask myself, then why the hell are they focusing on oil? Well, you hear other things. You hear, I don't know if you've gotten into this part, but you hear about experiments in time travel. Of course, there's been remote viewing, all these very highly advanced technologies and methodologies. Well, why on earth, if they really have these things, like I know people who would say that Mars is already inhabited and other planets, and we've gone to the stars already. How, if they have all this, why on the earth would they focus on oil? Why would they focus on something that they don't need and could actually abundantly, create this enormous thing for us? Now, I want to also say that, you have things like UFO abductions. You have people telling extraordinary stories about this sort of conspiratorial regime, the Illuminati, and things like that. And I'm wondering if there isn't a certain amount of disinformation and mind control in some of these extraordinary claims. Because if they have all this stuff, why the hell aren't they using it? How would it hurt them to use it? What would they gain? If we can go to the stars, we can populate the stars. We don't have to depopulate the earth, which is something we'll discuss.
But see, Johnny, their agenda is not to propel humanity to its highest potential. It's to keep us as their slaves. They feed off our energy. They are very greedy. That's why they're going to take every drop of oil out of the ground that they can and suppress the better forms of energy.
Well, why don't they take their 0 point energy, and they don't have to have slaves? They can have robots and stuff. Why are they wasting their time on this primitive human bullshit? Excuse my language.
That's what they're going to do.
I'm not saying they're not doing it. I'm asking why. Why would they bother? Why wouldn't they just go ahead and create a very nice planet and have their little corner? Why do they have to have the slaves and and all this negative technology?
Because they are not beings of light, like human beings are beings of light. These are not human entities. They are part human, but there's a part of them that is not human, that is very dark, that has no empathy and no love and no creativity. And they hate humans. We are, to them, we're just their little orcs, that they can, line up and be their slaves and, get the oil out of the ground and do all the work for the big corporations. And so that all the people at the top get very, very rich and we're just the slaves. They don't like human beings. And so, of course, they don't want to share the technology that they have and that they keep hidden from us. It's for their own purposes to propel them into...
They don't really need us, though. Do they? Why would they need us with all this technology? And this technology is the kind that could replenish the planet. And they'd have a nice planet, and they can send us a bunch of us to the stars, and they could have large parks and everything. I don't quite see.
That's their plan, Johnny, but it doesn't include us.
Yeah, but why not? What's the difference?
They don't like us.
Because they don't like us? Now, you're talking about prominent people, though, aren't you? Not all these people are hidden. You're talking about people like Kissinger or Bush, right?
Yeah,
they're psychopaths. Yes,
I'm not trying to. I'm just saying they live here. They go to restaurants. They watch movies. And they seem to be integrated somewhat into our world. Why wouldn't they like that to be a little nicer? Where they go to food restaurants, they're not as poisoned. If they're poisoning it on purpose, they know it's poison, right?
Well, yeah, but they know what's poison and what's not. They have their own, organic food, and they have their own vaccines that don't have the bad stuff in it. They live a very rarefied life, totally separate from us.
Do you think, Blaze, that it's possible that some of this, anyway, is trying to convey to the masses that they have extraordinary powers, and they are sort of so powerful and so omniscient and so omnipresent that they can do almost anything, and so you'd be terrified of them? In other words, they're terrifying you because they don't have all the marbles they claim to have.
The power to tax is the power to control.
I would say so. I heard the Beatles song.
Everything comes from that. This is why in 1913, the bankers pushed the Federal Reserve Act on Woodrow Wilson. And this is why later on that year, the IRS was created. There's an army of tax soldiers.
But he's talking more about, some.
If they're so intent on this type of control through money, why don't they just create some gold alchemically? I think 10% of Sir Isaac Newton's library was devoted to alchemy. And we know that metals can be changed just with nuclear energy, nuclear technology. And they have all this technology. Why do they have to bother? That's what I keep asking myself. I say, if they're so powerful, why are they using manipulative things like oil or the currency and financial markets and all this other stuff in order to... Why are they wasting their time when they should get? Why is Bush staying here? Why are they staying in? Why don't they just go off to Beta Hydra or something and have fun there?
Because they like planet Earth. It's beautiful. They are...
Well, they're kind of messing it up, aren't they? I mean, they're doing all... Well, let's go into how they're messing it up. I've done enough questioning because I would agree they are messing up the Earth, or someone's messing up the Earth. Let's talk about the existence of chemtrails that are deliberately flooding the skies with chemicals dangerous to human beings.
Yes, very dangerous.
I've heard various theories about chemtrails, and I hate to tell you, but there's one that I just heard. They claim that its purpose was by the government to deflect dangerous solar activity from the sun. I did dismiss this. I didn't think it was true. But is this really happening? Or are they trying to poison us with chemtrails? And what is that all about?
Oh, boy. Well, the chemtrails are particulate that is sprayed every day all over the world. The particulate is made up of various salts like barium and aluminum, and it also has nanoparticles of red blood cells in it, and viruses and God knows what else they're putting out there. There is a disease that has cropped up in the recent decade that they've labeled Morgellons disease. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I don't really remember what it is.
There are fibers that drop out of the sky that look like black, sticky spider webs that people have found all over the country, and they've taken them to private laboratories to have them analyzed. And people have gotten sick. This Morgellons disease is from the chemtrails, and people are having fibers grow out of their body through their skin, and then it gets red and bloody, and it will never heal. I mean,
that's what it is. That's what the symptoms are of Morgellons disease.
The symptoms are of Morgellons, and you see these long strands of fibers growing out of their skin, and it's creepy. And so some people who have this are actually scientists. So they grab the fibers and, they dig into the skin and take out a little sample and look at it under the microscope. And crystals are being formed, microscopic crystals. And it's from whatever they're spraying in the sky. Now, when they spray this stuff, not only does it acidify the soil, we have to breathe, so we're all breathing this stuff in. And this aluminum and barium, it's such nanoparticle size that it goes right through the blood-brain barrier, and it's permeating our bodies. And I don't think it could be good for us. I don't think they're spraying it because it's going to make us, gain 10 points in our IQ and be physically strong and never get sick again. It's all part of the plan to do us in and to destroy agriculture. Their plan is to eradicate human beings except for a small little army that they need to do their bidding, and the rest will be robots. And then they're going to become cyborgs. They're going to, grow body parts that they need to replace from time to time and, put in some machinery, be a little bit like Terminator, where you're half man, half machine, and live forever. That's their plan. So they have built these underground cities that we talked about in the last show. And whatever the conditions get on the surface of the earth, when it's unlivable, they'll just go underneath and stay there for as long as they need to. They've got their doctors, they've got their technology, they've got their little organs that are growing, they've got their organic food growing under the ground with fake grow lights. So if they want to launch a nuclear war, or, they don't care. They can stay underground for a very long time. We can go through another ice age. They plan to live forever and make themselves gods. This is it's so beyond science fiction that no one wants to look at it and think it might be true, but that's what it is.
Well, this part of me that's contrarian is coming up again, and I'm seeing these people living in this mansion on a 300-acre estate, which is completely beautifully groomed. I mean, it's just beautiful landscaping, and they live in this house with wonderful antiques and some modern furniture and all the latest technological entertainment that they can have. And at night, when it comes to about 2 o'clock, the whole family goes out and kills a bunch of people, and then they go home to their luxury estate. Because that's what I don't understand. They could have such a beautiful, nice life, and a lot of them do right now. Why are they going to go underground and create, the conditions for a nuclear war? I'm not saying that isn't happening, because it's, as we'll discuss, I do believe that the conditions for nuclear war are being allowed. I mean, it's just incredible. But anyway, let's get into this more, though, Zave, Blaze. I guess at this point I'll have to bring up what some would call the most overwhelming and frightening so-called conspiracy theories, which we mentioned a little bit. The idea of this is part of an attempt to intentionally depopulate the world. I don't know what I think of this concept, but I do know that with so many things happening that border on almost psychopathological avoidance of examining consequences, including the continuing development of nuclear weaponry and provocative excursions affecting countries with a toxic love of developing that weaponry without any real action, there might as well be the intentional depopulation agenda, because war, famine, extraordinary environmental accidents, extreme weather, and changes in the climate, toxic food, and toxic medicinals add up to a very nice agenda with that goal, whether intentional or not. But is it? You think it is, right?
It's intentional. And you said the word. They are psychotic. We're not dealing with people who are normal. They are psychotic to the degree that, they may end up destroying themselves as well. It doesn't even enter their minds that might possibly be the result. They're so driven by their greed and their lust. They have a lust for pain and suffering. They enjoy watching us suffer and take things away from us and make life harder.
Bonnie, that almost seems to me the core thing that you're saying. You're saying they're willing to avoid using their alternative technology and everything to save the planet in order to enslave us because they enjoy it, because they're the rich family that's going out at night killing people just for the fun of it, because they're living in a mansion and they're living in the middle of a wonderful landscaped paradise.
Exactly.
Hunters do the same thing on Sunday morning.
What does?
They take their rifle, they go in the woods, and they're going to kill animals, and they're going to feel good, and it's going to be good.
Well, that is true. But that doesn't hurt them. I mean, they kill the animals, they might enjoy it, but they go back home, and they don't have to think all day about some massive extermination plot.
We're just cattle to them. We are cattle to them, nothing
That's
more.
What it is.
Or chickens,
Sounds to me we're more like deer, insofar as they enjoy hunting us.
Yeah.
Oh, except they've put us in herd mentality. Absolutely. The mind control has created herd mentality.
All right. Well, we're speaking of poisoning the environment. We got the air, but let's look at fluoride in the water. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, who invented that?
Fluoride.
The fluoride.
I think it's a waste product, and I think it may be related to nuclear waste product, but I don't remember exactly. Do you remember?
Yeah, this is a technology that comes from the Nazis. Hitler developed, let me ask you this. How come you can take 6 million people, put them in a camp, and have them quietly sitting down and waiting for their deaths? How can you do this to 6 million people? Because they are drugged, because they are starving, and because the fluoride is a mind destruction drug.
It lowers your IQ and it makes you weak. You don't feel, you have no fight left.
That's right.
It takes away your fight instinct.
1932, Nazi party created this system. Number 2, a Nazi, the money was coming from the US. Number 3, the rise of Hitler in popularity is the same as we've seen with Obama. Number 4, to tell the German people that the Jews have to be eradicated because the conditions they live in is because of the Jews. We have the same racism going on right now. It's all engineered so we kill each other and we hate each other and we don't trust each other, we don't love each other. It's all about divide, conquer, and destruction. It's all about the biggest name that I could see to synthesize all that is happening now and that started happening in 1972. I spell it CONTROL. It's all about controlling. It's all about control. Everything we do, everything they do is to control us. Everything we do is to serve them.
Okay, that's a comprehensive answer.
This is falling under, and I would like your listener to go check that out. Agenda 21.
You can find it on the UN's official website. Just do a search for Agenda 21 and...
But Agenda 21, written by the UN, they say this is to help.
Yeah.
But because everything is inverted, you have to look at what is Agenda 21 outside of the UN.
Well, why don't you describe it to some degree?
Agenda 21 is 20% of depopulation over 60 years.
Okay.
Incomplete.
So this is completely documented by United Nations official.
No,
yes.
You're not going to see it on the official. It's going to be worded like sustain, like earth, humanity, better life.
You can read in between the lines. And a lot of it has to do with the Bureau of Land Management going in and stealing land from landowners to say that, for some reason they need it for the government. It's for conservation. It's for, the turtles that are going to die if humans stay on the land. And they joke and laugh how they'll buy a ranch of, 100-acre ranch and pay them a pittance for it and force them to move off their land and, pay them 1/10 of the value of their property. And it's part of their plan they don't want humans living on most of the United States. They want it to all be government protected, environmentally, and for the animals protected so that human beings can't be on it. And that's part of what's behind the
green mask.
Well, what's behind the global warming. Oh. They're using global warming to aid, that's part of the Agenda 21 to get people off the land. If you convince human beings that they're breathing in and out and eating and pooping and driving a car and putting their trash in the dump, destroying the planet, it's all our fault. We are destroying the planet, which is not true.
Well, I thought that global warming is usually attributed mainly to carbon emissions.
Yes.
Carbon dioxide emissions, I mean.
CO2.
CO2 comes from humans.
Now, let me ask you this. People out there listening to this program. CO2. I'm asking you this. What do the trees breathe?
CO2.
CO2, right?
People who have big greenhouses that they're growing vegetables, flowers, whatever. They put CO2 machines inside the greenhouse to enrich the level of CO2 so that the plants will be hardier, they'll grow larger. CO2, the amount of CO2 on the planet right now, we don't have a problem.
It's not enough.
We have a lower CO2 level than we did 100 years ago, and our trees are dying. Our trees are dying off because of the chemtrails, actually, but the CO2 levels are lower than they were 100 years ago, not higher. And CO2 is what feeds all things that grow out of the ground. That's their oxygen. So plants and humans are very symbiotic in that we exhale CO2, they take it in and release oxygen back to us. So what's going to happen when all the trees die and the agriculture can no longer grow because the soil has become too acidic? They are not in a big hurry. They could always just, go underground and unleash, hell upon us with nuclear war and be done with it and just, stay underground for 100 years and come back up and start over. I don't know. But they're doing it slowly. They don't want the people to rise up against them and understand what they're doing. So they do it in a hidden way. And they do it through every single aspect of life, what we breathe, what we eat, all the restrictions on our movement and our taxation, and you have to buy health insurance or we're going to fine you. We're going to take whatever little bit of money you have until you have nothing. And
now this is outrageous because we are in a country where I assume that coming to this country and becoming an American citizen, I am then subject to the law of the land. Can we agree with that? And we have been controlled by the land, by the law of the sea, and not the law of the land. Number two, the law of the land in America is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's why I'm here. And it's not being enforced. It's being debunked, and the justice system is throwing it in the garbage. So if we don't react to this, and if people don't go, stop it, this is wrong, this is America, this is our law of the land, we'll fight for it, because if we don't, our freedom will be gone. It's going to be over.
So in my opinion, since the little people, all we can do is have the knowledge, and through the information, the truthful information, connect the dots and understand what we're up against.
We have to take a short break before the next installment of Who's Minding the Planet. Here's a clip from Zave and Blaz's song, I Made It.
Lost, unaware, almost blind, couldn't land on my own feet. And when I fell, walking in chains, I had to try again and again and again. But I made it, 'cause I'm a man of my word.
This is Johnny Blue Star. Welcome to Threshold, a global media event. Is the universe just a random dance of atoms, or is it a manifestation of a supremely intelligent architect? Can its purpose, or our purpose here on Earth, be adequately assessed? Can we commune with it, know its intentions, cooperate with its direction? Here, we define Threshold as a gateway state of awareness, allowing mankind to cross into a place of real cognition. Threshold allows us to approach questions of higher reality through the door of experience rather than mere belief. Welcome to Threshold, where we tear away the veil from commercial media, bringing our audience and participants into another realm of reality and enhanced communication. This is Johnny Blue Star back on Threshold Radio with songwriters Zave Nathan and Bonnie Blazak. They are blessed as a married couple, but also as creative, collaborative partners in life and art. And as those of you have heard on our first hour, they're not afraid of putting their own 2 cents as to what is really happening here on planet Earth. Believe me, we're going to dig even deeper in this hour. I think they would agree with me that although we can always listen to people who have spent years formulating their view of the world and can marvelously articulated, it is up to us to do our own research and come to our own opinions. I have found many of Zave and Blaze's ideas provocative, and Zave has put me to work trying to validate some of his ideas, and they are truly interesting, if not more than a bit scary. Okay, well, now I'm not saying this is true, but I don't know myself. But another part of the problem is described by investigators and scientists outside of the mainstream media is the claim that certain aspects of our climate are being manipulated, like the drought in California.
Absolutely.
What do you think of that?
Absolutely. That's from the chemtrails. It's causing the drought.
Well, I'm talking about manipulating weather.
Yes.
Oh, since the 60s it's been going on.
Since the 60s. That's HAARP, HAARP. It's a government agency that...
Yeah, go ahead.
It controls the weather globally. And when they spray this particulate in the air, it grabs moisture and suspends it so that it cannot rain. It holds it in suspension, and so it doesn't form normal clouds. You'll notice that the skies don't look anything the way they used to look. It's rare to have a day where you have big fluffy clouds. There are striations across the sky that dissipate over time and, become this plasma mass in the air, which they can then manipulate. And they can send frequencies into it to make it turn into a tornado. They have taken over the weather. There's not much natural weather left anymore. So they keep it from raining purposefully. This drought is man-made. I am absolutely convinced of that. And I live here, so...
There are many aspects of the financing of the health needs of this country through single-payer or conventional insurance or some kind of strange hybrid like Obamacare. These are the different proposals that are presented to us. But for me, the problem is big pharma and the food industry. Who wants to worry about financing healthcare when one of the fundamental causes of ill health is the fact that our food is genetically manipulated without appropriate testing, poisoned by chemicals, hormones, pesticides, antibiotics, and relentlessly packaged, advertised, and sold without taking this serious problem into much consideration? So a lot of time, pharmaceuticals are just a way to cover up the symptoms from nutritional insufficiency and being poisoned, of course. That's my opinion. Do you agree?
Remember this, people out there. You are what you eat. And even though it might sound simplified, you really are what you eat. Number one, every day you need to eat because this is where you get your energy for life. So whatever you ingest will feed every cell of your body. Can we agree on this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So depending on what you put in your body will react to what you feed it. So if you feed your body non-natural, artificial products, your body cannot process it. Our computer, our DNA cannot process chemical products in our cells. Now, where do these products go once we ingest them? Where do they go? They go nowhere. They are stuck in our cells, they are stuck in our fat, they are stuck in our bellies, they are stuck in our butts, they are stuck in our fibers, muscles, they are stuck in our brains. They don't go anywhere because we don't know how to process them. The body doesn't know how to process them. Now, look around the American population, and you will see that 70% of the men, 65% of the men are obese, and 75% of the women are obese. And this is why. Because they've been eating products that their bodies cannot process. And over time, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of this, you become a balloon. And you cannot lose it because of your lifestyle, because of the roots, because of the cultural input. For instance, if you go to Chinese food, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, they all serve the same stuff. If you go to Mexican food, it's all the same stuff. If you go to French food, well, it's not, the French food is a very sophisticated cuisine, which not necessarily is healthy either. But if you go in Italy, you got, so by culture, they developed the way they eat and what they eat. And this is inherent to their immediate culture and immediate agriculture. Now, if in America, you have in the Midwest enormous land that grow corn. If the corn is pure, the corn will feed humans and animals. If the corn is GMO corn, it will feed animal and humans. But all the chemistry and all the chemical and declination of food products that is coming from this artificial corn, like the biggest one is corn syrup. And if you look in the packaged food in America, 95% of them is made with artificial corn syrup base. And this is destroying a whole culture and a whole population. Everything that you eat at the store that is packaged has to be processed. It has to have artificial products for preservation, coloring, taste. And once you ingest it, MSG, for instance, that stands for what?
Monosodium glutamate.
Monosodium glutamate, MSG, is a chemical that once it hits your brain, it deletes the sense of, I have enough to eat. You're always hungry, and you always want to eat more than what you just ate. So look at the size of the butts and the guts of people in those. It is. I'm from Paris. My mom raised me home-cooked meal from scratch. My wife cooks us from scratch. We don't buy or consume absolutely zero packaged food. We have a water filter. We have access to organic food from other farmers around where we live. This is a reason why we left Los Angeles to live in the countryside. And we sleep well. We feel well. We're in good shape. We take zero medication. I don't use the medical system. She doesn't either. We are completely odd ducks living in a parallel lifestyle.
It's not easy to do.
It's not. But
it's not easy to learn, and it's not easy to process, especially depending on where you are. I mean, that you can get, and the cost of organic fruits and vegetables could be quite high.
Not bad here. Not bad at all.
You'd be surprised. I have a neighbor who's a lovely lady. She's got 5 kids. She's 42. She showed me a picture of herself when she was 20 years old. She was like a knockout supermodel status. And, you have 5 children and you eat packaged food for 20 years. And she's like 40 pounds overweight.
And she started diabetes now.
She has started to get the symptoms of the onset of diabetes. And I've been trying to tell her for a couple of years now, because she'll come over to visit me and I'm always cooking something. And she'll go, oh, what's that? What's that? Oh, I never saw that before, and I tried to educate her without being insulting. You don't want to tell people, wow, look at you, you're fat and you're eating garbage, So I tried to tell her and she never tried. I said, you're a stay-at-home mom, 4 of your kids live with your ex and you only have 1 baby at home. You can cook. And she just never did it. So now that she knows that she's got diabetes on her over her right shoulder, she's finally starting to think about doing it another way. But she spends a fortune on packaged food. It's far more expensive than what we spend on organic fruits and vegetables.
Absolutely.
You'd be surprised what you get for $100 worth of packaged food versus $100 worth of organic fruits and vegetables.
Let me interject a little bit, just to give you an idea. We have access here to an organic distribution. Our neighbors is distributing food from local farmers. And it's called Abundant Harvest. And you can go online and check it out. They distribute actually all across Southern California and Central California.
And Southern, they deliver Pasadena. So
my wife, my sweetie pie here, because she handles the whole food system at home. We buy $25, a box of $25 of explain.
Yeah, what they do is it's seasonal food because obviously they're going to sell you the best of their harvest for that week. It's fresh from the farm. And so it's going to be seasonal. So in the summer, you get all the lettuces and tomatoes and zucchinis and a lot of different summer fruits, the peaches and the plums and all that stuff. And then in the fall and winter, you're getting a lot of root vegetables, pumpkins,
turnips,
rutabaga, turnips, potatoes and carrots and that kind of thing. So it's taught us how to eat seasonally. So that it really, your body does so much better eating that way than if you're eating summer foods in the winter. And it's forced me to look up recipes and learn how to take things like a rutabaga and make it taste good because it's a very weird looking vegetable.
And one of the farmer's wife on the page that they give us, she gives us a recipe.
Yeah, we get a recipe every week, and you can go on.
Beautiful.
You can go online and they have a plethora of recipes that you can go in and find. They're all fabulous. She's an amazing cook. So it's an education process. And for most people, I was born in 1951 and the 50s was, after World War II, it was all about convenience, white bread that tasted like Kleenex, with peanut butter and jelly on it for the kids and everything. The vegetables came out of a can, the little frozen dinners came out and everything was, we were told as a society, hey, you're busy. You don't have time to cook and deal with all that. Say, here, how do you handle a hungry man with a man handler? And you throw something into the oven, which then became the microwave, and bing, in 10 minutes it's dinner. Whereas I spend 2 hours preparing,
lovingly
a dinner, and
a lot of fun,
and enjoying it, and just smelling the wonderful, clean vegetables and fruits that I'm working with, and it's a different mindset that they did. They wanted us to buy those products. Absolutely. Because those corporations want to control the population through their food. I mean, it's the food, water, air, everything.
It's like Wonder Bread. It's a wonder, they call it bread.
Inversion. Wonder Bread. Inversion.
Yeah. Well, I want to move on to something related directly to what you're talking about. And that is strangely related to the massive effect of Big Pharma on the health of Americans and also the food industry's effects. and millions throughout the world is the effect of a similar type of promotion that energizes Big Pharma's effect on our political life. That is the effect of what we started with as a tiny little box that managed to put out flickering black and white pictures, but now lives in some people's houses, a large multicolored curved screen with crystal clear images, sometimes in 3D with quadraphonic sound, and serves as a vehicle for gaming experiences, action-packed films, special effects, and high-powered news and commentary blasting out messages 24 hours a day. The problem with this wonderful the problem with this wonderful device is that it's used for lulling our citizens into hypnotic sleep. It is called television, and its impact on millions of people wonderfully extracts them from political reality. Before we discuss this, let's hear a song that you guys wrote about it called Television.
All day, you're so tired at night. You wonder why your sex drive is gone. Your TV dinner is waiting for you. You grab the remote and turn on the news, and then your box is telling you what to buy. Television, television, there must be a way out of this. Television, television, another life falling out of grace. You're hypnotized, so why do you sleep at night? Your brain is fried and waits for a fight, alright. You want to watch your favorite sports, but it fits you commercial spots. Making a deal, your time for your cash, not bad. Television, television, there must be a way out of this. Television, television, another life falling out of grace. Television, television, there must be a way out of this. Television, television, another life falling out of grace. And one day you'll catch yourself in the mirror, and you won't dream what you do all this for. Your freedom is gone, but you try to beat them. Unless you cut them off, you're a slave to the system. So you get slim for gym. You drive everywhere, you run out of gas. They don't care, they got your cash. You're like a robot, buying this or that. Television, television, there must be a way out of this. Television, television, another life falling out of grace. Television, television, there must be a way out of this. Television, grace. Out of grace. Out of grace, 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 out of grace.
Obviously, you have a strong feeling about television. How do you feel about its impact, and how would you say its impact actually works?
Number one in the world, the most powerful mind control machine ever built. Number one. Nothing equals television as far as mind control is concerned. It's the number one. Number two, music.
Yeah.
Music being the entertainment of choice around the world, because there's a lot of population who don't have television, or China, South America, field workers, but they always have music is the most natural and the most used form of entertainment. So in the modern world, television has developed into definitely and scientifically engineered and developed to mind control human beings.
They have worked very diligently on finding just the perfect flicker rate. They have experiments in government experiments with monkeys where they're just with this flashing light all the time and figuring out the brainwave patterns and how to get them into a state of compliance and what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a neutrality, where you're just in this soup of vibration and information that you're taking in very deeply as truth and reality when it's all inverted and lies. And that's how they have managed to mind control the entire population and divided us into these little groups. And each group mind has its own belief system that pits us against another group with their belief system.
It's brilliantly done. Absolutely brilliantly
done.
And
it all comes through television. All comes through television.
The sophistication behind this technology that the public at large just gobbles like, oh, it's so fun, man, check this out, it's so cool. It's all, I don't have words for it, because we haven't watched television for, how long for you?
Oh, for me, it's been 15 years.
Yeah, for me, 11. We don't have television in our home. This is because we recognize that this is the tool that invades your privacy, invades your individuality, invades and controls your thinking. You see, if you don't watch television, what do we do every day without television? We have time to talk. We write music, we read, we write, we research, we get informed. We sleep well, we love well, we're in good health. I'm never sick, we're never sick. I don't use my insurance. We don't use any healthcare, nothing. We live a very simple, off the grid, off the flicker rate type of life. And we are still healthy, vibrant, creative, loving, taking risks. We're still, pretty good. And I weigh 87 pounds, and you are 120?
128.
128. Oh, let's say 125. Okay. We are in that range, and I'm 61, and she's 65, and no TV, no packaged food.
So people, we are being forced in a direction away from reaching our potential as human beings. We're being pushed to take ourselves down several notches rather than lift us up several notches. But if you understand it, we each as individuals have the power to choose
the choice,
for ourselves. But again, it's convenience, and you watch TV and it's like, well, get your kids this cereal and buy this thing and this pudding, and you just open the package, add water and stir. And so that's what people do.
Well, right now I'm going to say something that's a little bit out of sync because I'm going to use it. Because we really, the timing of this is peculiar, as usual. But I'm going to just say this. Let's take a short break from our discussion of television musical programming to hear one of Zave's wonderfully mellow and nurturing instrumentals called Bolero Waltz. In our first show, Who's Minding the Planet, we spoke a bit about the covert ways of surveillance of the press has affected our freedom of the press and dashed any hope of transparency of government. But how about its effect on the private citizen? I believe that the current claim of the government is that under the so-called Freedom Act, phone companies still collect and store phone records, but they are not fed to the intelligence agencies unless they go through the FISA court, which is, of course, highly secretive. Other so-called surveillance programs authorized under the Patriot Act have been shut down as well. Still, to be honest with you, almost everyone I talk to still believes that American citizens are under surveillance. And with the immense history of lying and deception about these programs, the psychological weight of being under surveillance constantly still weighs on Americans. And why, given that history, should we trust whatever we're told?
Exactly. We shouldn't trust what we're told. And, unfortunately, the bulk of the population does. But yes, it's a real problem. And
if you lose your privacy, even if it's just the sense of your privacy being taken away or being controlled, you lose your personal freedom.
I certainly feel that loss. I feel like my life changed when I realized what was being done. I grew up, I must have read 1984 5 times when I was a kid.
You are an elite thinker.
And so that story horrified me, and the end of it brought me close to tears. You remember the end of it?
I haven't read it.
Well, after he's tortured for he's finally been captured. He's been a rebel. He's tortured, and his hair is falling out, and his body is really in bad shape. And then you can imagine a camera closing in on him, and the final words are, "He loved Big Brother."
You end up loving your jailer.
Yeah.
This is the so-called Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. It's just so sad what happens, how they manipulate this guy and utterly destroy him. And it so much falls in with the kind of psychology we were talking about.
We are in it.
And yes, well, it's gone beyond what even he was saying. Because you'd walk in a room, you could kind of hide from the telescreen. Now you're telling us that it's in air conditioners and light bulbs and so forth. I don't know the truth of how comprehensive it is, but I do know that if my emails and phone calls are being monitored, that is enough to make me feel completely under some kind of surveillance. But let's take a little break now and listen to the lighter side of Zave Nathan's instrumentals. Tell us a little about Silk Ribbon.
I was looking for a different structure, writing for television, because I wrote this for a television publisher. The way you cut music for image is different. If you depends on the scene, depends on the medium. If it's television, it's different than movies, it's different than internet. Mm-hmm. There are formulas of how you cut the music in. When you edit a movie and you put music behind it, you have what we call transition scenes. For instance, because you're on the radio, I will explain roughly how it works so your listener can mentally understand. You will have a scene cutting from a gas station and into where you pay for your gas, into the little shop. So there's 2 different scenes. You're going to see the car coming in towards the pumps, park, a guy come out and walk into the payer where he's going to pay. And in this action, the director wants to show the viewer that the action of the car coming in, the guy coming out and paying, something happens in the cashier's place and then comes out again and pump his gas. We all go through this at least 3 times a week. So you will have, the director will say, well, Zave, the car's coming in. Okay, I got that. So we're going to get, he's going to park and stop the car. Then you have an observation point. Then you have a second action when he leaves to go pay. So you follow the guy, there's a different action there. Then when it's filmed from inside the cashier's place, there's another energy there. So all of these are transiting from one scene to the other. They need music to emphasize these trends, these transitions. So I wanted to do a track with 3 different versions that you can cut in, and it's easy for the editor to bring the beginning of the part, which is just 8 bars, and use it for another scene or use it to feed into another situation. Then you have the second part of the track that you can mix into. So the idea was to give my publisher one track that he cut in 3 different sections, and they all interact with each other musically.
Okay.
It's easy for the mixer to take the first part, the second part, or the third. Or for credits, you take the whole minute and a half or minute 20, and you put it into the credits because musically they all fit together. And they keep the identity of the music for the whole section. That was the idea.
Oh, very interesting. Let's go play Silk Rhythm. Another disturbing aspect of our present culture is falling into the pit of brutality equal in many ways to the Inquisition, the behavior of the Nazis and the Japanese during World War II, and other medieval practices which disrespect the rights of man. To indulge in torture was to break the rules of the Geneva Convention and several torture treaties, as well as the spirit and law of the Eighth Amendment in the Bill of Rights. Here's what George Washington said about torture in regards to the treatment of prisoners. Treat them with humanity and let them have no reason to complain of our copying the brutal example of the British Army in their treatment of our unfortunate brethren who have fallen into their hands. His concern for this matter was so intense that he further charged the Northern Expeditionary Force on September 14, 1775 with this: "Should any American soldier be so base and infamous as to injure any prisoner, I do most earnestly enjoin you to bring him to such severe and exemplary punishment as the enormity of the crime may require. Should it extend to death itself, it will not be disproportional to its guilt at such a time and in such a cause, for by such conduct they bring shame, disgrace, and ruin to themselves and their country." George Washington, who was in charge of the Northern Expeditionary Force on September 14th, as I said, 1775. Some advocates of torture say that its use is some kind of threat to the enemy. But to others, including myself, torture is an invitation to the enemy to recruit more followers. Here's a quote from an anti-war blog by Scott Horton. In the worst of times, quote, "When foreign troops literally occupied American soil, torturing and murdering American patriots," end quote, "and few believed that the cause of the revolution should ultimately win against the might of the British Empire, our first commander-in-chief of the USA set the precedent that this society is to lead even our enemies by benevolent sympathy of our example. To win the war against the occupying army of redcoats, the American revolutionaries needed right on their side, and it worked. Many of the German Hessians, in fact, joined the revolutionaries in their fight against the English and stayed here in America to be free when the war was won. Must we abandon this legacy? Is it already too late to reclaim it?" This was written in 2007. By the way, and the United States, whether truly following it or not, has reversed its view on enhanced interrogation, but now there are cries to bring it back. Here's the problem as I see it. Remember, Threshold is basically a spiritual program which represents my point of view, and not necessarily those of my guests. I think that one of the tricks of whatever and whoever is driving us towards a security state is to create a certain us-them attitude towards whatever we conceive to be the enemy. The problem of this, from a spiritual point of view, is that everyone is connected, conscious or not, to the presence of God, and therefore they need to be looked at in the same way as God looks at them. This is only possible to do if one connects with the divine presence, called the Shekinah in Judaism, the kingdom of God in Christianity, and Fana by Sufi mystics in the Islamic faith. One modern interpreter of ancient mysticism who recently deceased, Wayne Dyer, calls our consciousness of this state being in spirit. To reach this point of contact can take decades or sometimes perhaps a matter of minutes. Any understanding of this idea took me decades myself, and I'm sure I'm only at the beginning of my journey. Still, I believe that the farther we descend into the brutal treatment of prisoners, break our treaties in the Geneva Convention by speaking about our prisoners as enemy combatants instead of prisoners of war, the farther we descend away from the point of view harmonious with the state, and we fall into karmic realm of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, which means as we sow, we shall reap. What is the role of spirituality in preventing us from descending to a level of animal predatorship, which is so prevalent in the actions of ISIS in the Middle East?
In war, there is a sense of nobility. When you have a country like, let's say France during the revolution, or before the revolution, if you want. Same era, 1775, our revolution was 1789. So in the same demise of Louis XVI, we had the same kind of anger and revolutionary spirit. People have enough. They won't accept this anymore. Forget it. There's no other way than going down to the streets and taking our power back and having enough courage to accept death for freedom. To get to this level, you have to have a lot of balls. You have to have a lot of courage to go, you know what, sweetie pie, I love you very much, my son, my daughter, my wife, but I'm going to take my little musket with my buddies over here, and we're going to fight the guys on the other side of the line. I don't know if I will ever see you again, but I love you, and if I come back, we're going to have a better life. I mean, this is a very simple explanation, but when it comes down to it, at 7 o'clock in the morning, or 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes, this is what you do. And if you keep the nobility of your war, you will keep the respect of the victory or the respect of the one that will lose. There is still a nobility when you respect your enemy. This is the terms that the Geneva Conventions were written under. Now, when you deal with ISIS, this is a whole different system of war. First of all, this is not declared war. Second of all, it's very cowardly because they use bombs and they use their weapons against people that have no weaponry. So you cannot compare the respect of war, the respect of prisoners, and what comes from that conflict.
Yes, you can. Sure you can. The way the Japanese treated the American prisoners of war is not that all that different. And the way the Nazis treated, all kinds of people is certainly very, very similar. And we did not descend as in terms of our official policies to that level.
When you use brutality without respect, you create vengeance, a blind vengeance. This is emotionally how human beings react.
That's emotionally how human beings maybe react instinctively, but that is not the way they react if they are in touch with their inner presence. It is not the way they react. It's the opposite of the way they react, because to actually love your enemy, as Jesus spoke of it, but many other people spoke of it, is, yes, it is not empowered by a normal, what we call a normal state of consciousness, but it is empowered by being in another state. And that state is of all importance because that is part of the way that we can probably win over these predators that are controlling the planet, because we need the power of manifestation that comes along with it.
As long as we have enough mass of awareness to fight it, yes.
Yes, but even so, within ourselves, because people. What happens to people in the seeds of repression and war can be highly different from one person than the next.
Now, when you talk about war, what is war?
Well, I mean, are you looking for a constitutional answer, or are you looking for a more generic answer?
What I'm getting at is the war is never humans against humans. It's never, oh my God, 63 million French people want to fight against 62 million German people because we hate your guts. This is not true. This is not at all what happens. What happens is the leader of France is looking at the leader of Germany and say, what? I'm going to kick your ass, motherfucker, right? So they don't do this face to face. They hire military forces for pissing contest. And then they have a way to control the emotional mind of the citizens to create the patriotism to fight against the enemy that didn't do anything to me. If I go to Germany during World War II, or if Germans come to France and they say, you're French and we are invading you and we're going to kill you. And the French people go, why? Because Hitler had decided to take over France. And de Gaulle is like, what the heck is happening here? And it's never a race against another race. It's always activated by the leaders. It's a leader against the leader. It's a complete fallacy. It's activation of the defense mechanism, the emotional response to threat that human animals and even animals have in their DNA. This is how we react. So they are called third-party agitator, and this is how it works. For instance, Johnny, we will have a common person who knows both of us. Let's call him Henry. Henry knows you, Henry knows me. And he wants us to fight. So as a third-party agitator is going to go and talk to you and say, hey, Johnny, what are you doing Saturday? I was driving in the neighborhood. Maybe I can stop by and take you to dinner, And so you say, sure, no problem. And during the discussion, he says, oh, Xavier, yeah. Well, you know what he told me? And you're going to go, what? Well, I don't know if I'm at liberty to say that, but he told me that you guys have issues and stuff and that he wants to kick your ass. Now, how would you feel about that situation when you hear that from Henry? You go, what? I don't believe that. And he leaves it at that. Then he comes and says, hey, Xavier, wonderful. I was in the neighborhood. What's up with you? Well, why don't we get together? And during the discussion, he says, oh, I heard that you're friends with Johnny, right? I go, yeah. Well, I don't know if I can say that, but I was discussing with him and we were talking about you. And you know what? And I said, what? What? He wants to kick your ass. But don't tell him I told you. I just, So at that point, he removes himself from the equation. And from this information, I am afraid of you and you're afraid of me. He is an instigator. And once you have a tension built up like this between two entities, you just bring a spark, which is he's going to give you a machine gun that you pay for. He's going to sell me a machine gun. So at that point, he sold 2 machine guns and we got to kill each other.
Well, I think that that's true in some cases, but in other cases, you have countries like Nazi Germany invading Poland in a matter of days. And other countries too. They just invaded them. They didn't have a chance to summon up, sell arms. No one was selling arms to both sides. They were just, they were selling them to the Nazis for sure.
Well, the Nazis, 1932, correct?
As far as I know, approximately. It wasn't very long. I mean, it was like around 7 years before our whole war situation started, I mean, the war in Europe started in 1941. You have the Japanese attacking us, and you can definitely say there were third parties involved in some of this, undoubtedly. But part of it was just pure aggression on one side without any chance of developing patriotism on the other side. So there are different kinds of cases. I'd like to go on to something related to this in our own country, if that's all right. The prolonged exercise of Jade Helm in Texas and other neighboring states brought about a chill to many observers concerned about the violations of posse comitatus, a doctrine which prohibits the military, particularly the Army and the Air Force, illegally from exercising police functions in the United States. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, ordered the National Guard to monitor these exercises, fearing they would be violating our domestic rights as citizens. Special forces trained in assassinations and extractions were a component of this exercise, which was conducted on the ground with people in both civilian clothes and military uniforms. Is this a prelude to developing a standing army to frighten our populations into submission to an ever-encroaching restriction of personal freedom?
Okay, now Governor Abbott did what he did, and then what happened?
They still had it, as far as I know.
Of course, it does not matter. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. They do what they do, and they give us the illusion that we can vote yes or no on whatever they do. Whatever they want to do, they are doing. It does not matter if we are against or for. It doesn't matter.
Well, I don't see how you can say that we're going to take action or do something if you have that sort of defeatist attitude.
Well, if you are the governor and the military goes, well, we're going to go to Texas and do Jed Helm. And he goes, what the hell is Jed Helm? Well, it's training in the streets, to help to train into civilization. Why? Well, because whatever excuse, there's always a good reason, because the minds behind them are extremely smart people. So the reasons that are exposed for us to accept is always to protect us, to help us. So, and in this specific situation, we are bombarded with images of civilian and military from everywhere in the world. So having it in America, it gets the public used to having military
It's a form of conditioning.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that it's a form of conditioning, and I believe it's true that he couldn't really do anything about it anyway unless he did something extraordinary. But nonetheless, a lot of people are alarmed by it, and I think a lot of people are not willing to accept this kind of violation of our independence. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because could I have predicted what would have happened that helped stop the war in Vietnam, which was that giant march in Washington, or the way the civil rights movement actually came down, or the way the occupation movement didn't do anything except get people arrested. But there are people, and there is a will among some of them to do something. Well, let's go on for a second. If we were comparing our current history to Nazi Germany, I would say it would be considerably somewhat after the Reichstag fire, a false flag where the Nazis organized the terrorist action against their own parliament, resulting them in seeking the protection of Hitler and his Nazi movement. Shortly after Hitler took power, he began the process of invading other countries under different pretexts. I believe the German people were as asleep as many Americans are, and although the progress of the Nazi takeover was rather fast as regards the short number of years it took to get to World War II, the German people complied without too much thinking, as one step followed another until the total population was under control. For me, coping with these obvious encroachments on liberty and envisioning the possibility of a more tangible loss of liberty under the threat of violence, imprisonment, or enforced disappearance weighs heavily on me, especially since I forced myself to study it. Since you're highly involved with watching and evaluating these type of attacks on our liberty and future, how do you cope personally with this? How do you cope personally with the nightmare world that we've been discussing in this program?
Well, it's very tough on an emotional level. Because there's only so much one person can do. And until we unite, until more people understand, and they aren't waking up and they aren't understanding. So there's a lot of defeatist kind of energy involved with trying to balance that with hope. For us, we cope by keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening, because we very much want to know. And we create our own safety bubble by, preparing with having extra food in case of, civil unrest, and maybe food won't be delivered to the stores. And, it may get really bad the way we've seen it happen in many other countries over the years. We have love in our lives. We take care of what's in our little bubble. And, we don't participate in supporting the things in our government that we are against. It's like when they say you vote with your dollars, and where you put your attention. For instance, I don't have medical insurance. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't care what they try to tax me because I didn't get it. I have my Medicare, and that's free, and that's fine.
That's it. Me too.
But I don't have. Oh no, you have Medi-Cal.
Oh, Medi-Cal. Oh.
And I just refuse to participate in their corruption. So I think that's really all an individual can do, is you make your choice to either go along with their program or go along with your own program.
I tell you, for me, I don't like to use this word too much because it's stereotype, but I have to meditate. I have to put myself, I have to intentionally leave my sort of what would I call it? Just the ordinary state of being where you're worried about everything and you're doing certain things and you get engrossed in certain things. I need to leave this state. And in that other state, I can see again. It's like climbing above the clouds and looking down. And also it's filled with a lot of peace and brightness. Well, unfortunately, the time has come to end our latest edition of Threshold. Thank you so much, Zave and Blaze. Fantastic conversation. We will now go out on an optimistic note with one of Zave's songs called I Believe.
And we mustn't forsake and forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our lives we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I.
Believe. We each are the stewards of our planet Earth, for all that it is and for all that it's worth. Our mission is clear and it is human's fate to take back the keys to the gate. We're living again through the great fall of Rome, and we really don't know if we'll ever get home. It's a long road ahead, but I know where to start. Stay strong and keep love in our hearts. And we mustn't forsake or forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our life we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I. When we finally unite and live here in peace, then the greed and the wars and corruption will cease. But we will see much loss, and for that we will grieve. In the end it is love we'll receive. And we mustn't forsake, forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our life we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I. When we create the magic in the air, you look and feel the crowd around you. And when the wavelength grows stronger between us, don't be afraid to let it go. And we mustn't forsake, forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our life we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I. And we mustn't forsake and forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our life